And what else? Another guy came up, and I was thinking about, I've been working in this 12-step stuff that I'm doing. They have, you talk about family and people you have resentments against and things that are buried inside of you that can that can affect the way you behave daily, but you don't realize it. It's not like they're treasures, but you don't realize they're treasures at first. Because resentments, they can really, it's like a little edge inside of you where it's supposed to be a curve. And so everything that goes around there is choppy. Every time your thoughts or your feelings pass through that canal of that journey within you, if you're thinking about something that even is related to, a previous experience you had that you didn't like, or a person that you don't like, or a family member, a loved one, or a parent or whatever, you have a resentment. So then anytime something else comes up that would kind of use one of the same streets in your brain or your feelings, it'll, instead of it being a curve, it'll be a 90-degree angle, and it's choppy. They're like speed bumps for the way that you can love others. To me, anyway, I can't love people as well if I have these speed bumps in me. It makes kind of the highway at my heart. It's got a lot of. It's just you're gonna have to have really good insurance if you're gonna travel down it, because I got a lot of speed bumps on it. Resentments, anger, things, previous experiences that are rough, that make my road rough and make it rough for me to bring anybody down the road. And they had a young man that came after the show, and he said, hey, I really appreciate some of the stuff you talk about on the podcast when you get into like just talking about what you're feeling and stuff. My father was real old when I was born. You guys know that. My dad was born in 1910. And so I've been doing this work recently, just thinking about my dad and my relationship with him. And this young fella at the show said, hey, my dad was 61. And that got me thinking even more about my dad, and just kind of how, I always had, I love my dad. I'm grateful for him. But I've also always been a little bit angry at him. I didn't realize it. I was always angry because I didn't know him very well. I was 16 when he passed away, and he was 86. And, I was angry because I didn't know him, because he didn't know me. I kind of always... And then I realized that I really kind of judged my father. Like, I didn't realize, I always thought that one of the reasons we didn't know each other very well was because of the age gap. But I really started to think back more on it, and one of the reasons also we didn't know each other very well was because I really judged him. I really judged him for being so old. Other kids would make fun of him, and then I kind of made fun of him. And I think sometimes I didn't even try to get to know him. Even though I was young, it wasn't my responsibility, really. It wasn't an ideal situation. But I didn't really try to get to know him. And I would make the excuse, well, he shouldn't have had a kid when he was that old, What was he thinking? Well, that's true. But if he doesn't have that, I don't exist. So there's validity there to that argument, but if I don't exist, but he gave me my existence, however way it happened. he really gave me the most important gift, which is my experience of the world. And I judged him so much and kind of that I didn't really get to know him. There were times he probably thought sometimes, wow, maybe my son he's not interested, or I think maybe I was afraid to get to know him because I knew he was going to pass away. So it was probably like safer to not get to know him. But I remember I chose to joke around. I would always make, because other people started making fun of my dad because he was just so old, man. And so I would make fun of him, sometimes. Because it's all I could do. It's the only thing I could do to kind of survive was to also make fun of him. But in doing that, I didn't really honor him. I didn't really honor my relationship with him that much. I didn't, and I'm not really blaming myself. I'm not coming down hard on myself. I'm trying to get to a place where, when I think about fatherhood and I think about parenting, I'm trying to, pick these locks that keep me from having a lot of emotions in those spaces. But I was real embarrassed of my father. I hate to say this, man. I was embarrassed, like, when we would walk somewhere, I would walk kind of far behind him or away from him. Because he was so old, and he didn't notice that much because, when you get old, and this wasn't when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was real doting on him. I was real caring. I remember we would walk to church sometimes, and I would, I'd make sure that the leaves were off of the sidewalk, and I would make sure that that he knew that a sidewalk in Louisiana, dude, good fucking luck, bro. That thing is a gangplank. Dude, sidewalk in Louisiana, that's a side work. They should call it that thing. The first thing is like that. The next one is straight up. One of them is a damn drawbridge because they got all the tree roots popping through. So you have one piece of cement sidewalk. The next piece is the third piece is an off ramp. Take you right over to La Place where Billy Conforto lived, R.I.P. The sidewalk in Louisiana, that thing is dangerous. Slip and fall, dude. Slip and fall all the way into the Lord's arms. That thing's killing senior citizens left and right. That's a side work, baby. There's no... And so I remember I'd make sure that my dad knew how the sidewalk was when we were young so that we could walk together, But then as he got older, I remember like we'd be somewhere and I would be, I'd walk away from him or, I remember like, I remember like I remember like his skin sometimes on his hands was real old. Excuse me. I just cleared my own throat and swallowed my own mucus. So I'm obviously a reptile. But I remember his skin on his hands was so old that sometimes, when I saw him, it would make me, like I loved him and stuff, but it would make me kind of scared or it would make me kind of sad sometimes, when he touched me because he wasn't the way that I wanted him to be, and I'm not sad because I don't think this is like my fault. I'm not, I don't want you to, I'm not like in this kind of woe is me space. I just, I want to be able to be as loving as I can. And I know that sometimes I have to examine relationships in my life to see where I have hangups. But yeah, I was just embarrassed of him, the way Because my dad was a handsome man. He had a lovely girlfriend, Miss Maggie, and she would make us she lived in a nice place, man. I remember when I went to her place, it was like the nicest apartment we'd ever been in. Big tall ceilings, man. You could have a whole nother fucking room in the ceiling. The ceiling was so high. I said, damn, just give me a hammock. I'll go live up there. Give me 4 hammocks. You know? I'll just Tarzan around up there. I'll build a little kitchenette up there, halfway up the wall. Give me 4 hammocks. I'll live in the corner of the ceiling. And she took care of my dad when he was real old. She was probably about she was probably 60. And my dad was, at that point, he's 85 or something. Or she was probably about 63. And she was fancy. She was like a high society woman, in New Orleans. And that's still very, they got the fancy people down there, but she was a good woman, and she loved my dad. And they were friends, and yeah, but I just remembered seeing him like, walking around. I remember I'd sleep over there sometimes at her house in the middle of the night, and my dad would get up to go to the restroom, and I'd see him in like the window in like the moonlight. She had these big windows that faced right out on the Mississippi River, man. She lived in I don't even know what it was. It was over there in across the river, across the Mississippi over there in out I can't even remember it right now. Kind of by Gretna, but right by the river, by the ferry. Anyway, and I would see my dad walk. I could see him walk, and he was just old, And I didn't recognize it as much when he was, I'd see him fully clothed, all dressed up, and he dressed up real nice every day. And then at night, though, I'd see him in his body. He seemed like a dinosaur, like an old dinosaur. And I think it made me scared. It made me, as a kid, but it made me angry at him. And I didn't realize this till literally just this week. And then I was thinking about it even more on the flight home this morning after this guy last night was telling me he had an old father. And by hearing me talk about my dad, sometimes he could relate. And that made me feel happy. It made me feel happy to know that, we can relate to each other. But yeah, it made me, it just made me look more at my relationship. And I could have had more memories with him if I hadn't judged my father so much. He wasn't like this, or he couldn't do this. He didn't have anything. I just think I'm not mad at myself. I want you to know that I'm not like, I think I could have been maybe could have been a better son to him, and I know the circumstances weren't ideal, but I just maybe could have been a better son to him sometimes, I could have had more pride. I wish somebody had taught me to have more pride in my family when I was young, because I didn't know. And then when other kids started making fun of, my situation in the world, like, I joined them and made fun of my situation as well, instead of having a sense of pride. Now that's where, my parents or the world or the scenario or whatever, that's where, my father he could have done a better job by helping me have a sense of pride in our family. And maybe he tried, and sometimes things just are the way they are. But I never realized that I was angry at my dad until I wrote down this resentment thing. It says I'm angry at my father, and then I have to write why I'm angry at him. So I have to really sit there and think. And I was angry at him because I didn't know him. I never got to know him. I know he loved to sit and drink coffee and speak in Spanish to his friends. I know he bought a Delta 88 off a black dude and had some speakers in it that were fucking ratchet. And he would just listen to talk radio with the loudest bass you've ever heard coming through the neighborhood. I mean, you never heard a man roll through the neighborhood with just the weather report. 60% chance of clouds. 40% chance of rain. I mean, dude, it was fucking crazy, man. And he liked to, go sleep in his car at the park a lot of times. And, but I was ashamed of him. I was ashamed of, I was ashamed of my father. And maybe it was just a safety mechanism for me because I was afraid that if I got to know him, that I knew he was going to die. I just knew how time worked. But I have to look at this. I have to look at that relationship in my life because it affects the way today, how I look at time. It affects like how I look at age, how I look at, wanting to have a family and not wanting, if I have this built up fear somewhere deep inside of me that I'm not going to be able to create a loving relationship with a child, even if it comes from a scenario that's irregular, like an old, very old man having a son. But if I let that fester in me without examining it, then it could affect if I decide to have a son or not at all, or have a child. So I have to look at those things. But I was embarrassed of my father, What else? I have a list here of things because I wrote this stuff down about my resentments. And then I get upset sometimes that I don't remember him. And I was going right into adolescence and teen and, getting erect and all of that. And I started doing masturbation and whatever, 13, 12, bro. It's Dick City. You could look at every state in the universe. You look at any map when you're a kid at 13 years old, bro, and it's Dick City. Population, yeah, boy. But yeah, I mean, I was ashamed of my father. And then I just realized that I miss him, I realized that I judged him. And I realized by looking through some of the things that I was just pretty judgmental. And I don't know where that judgment came from or how it started. I'm not ashamed of him. I'm not mad at myself of it. I'm not. But I'm glad that I'm able to see it a little bit now. That I was judgmental towards people that love me because, I was afraid because I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to love them. And by learning, here's the thing, by learning sure, my father had a bunch of faults. He shouldn't have had a kid at that age, I'm glad he did though. What do I mean he shouldn't have? I'm glad he did. If he didn't, I don't exist. So, but maybe he should have thought more about it. Maybe he did. I don't know. Maybe he thought he was going to live to like 100. He always say that. So he'd always like kind of guarantee me that. But I learned through doing this process, like why I'm angry at my father. I was ashamed of him. I was embarrassed of him. I can't apologize to him. I can't love him. He was selfish. I'm angry because our relationship wasn't what I wanted. I think that's one thing. From the get, I realized, our relationship, this isn't what I want out of a father-son relationship. So I'm not going to care about it that much, but. And then sometimes I felt a lot of times like I used my dad because he was so old that even if I did like regular kid kind of mischief around him, it always came off like I always felt bad about it. Because if you joke around with it, you say you hide something from your dad. If he's 30, that's fine. He'll find that shit. But you hide something from your dad and he's 78, you hide his car keys. Dude, he could look for a month. So I think I developed this deep sense of like feeling bad about myself because I would do regular things a kid would do, but then I would see the effect that they would have on an older person, and then I would feel so bad about it because a kid's going to do those things no matter what, but then when you see that this old person can't deal with it, and then it makes you feel bad, you know? So I think I developed this sense of like shame a lot that kind of lives in me. But I don't realize it unless I start to look at these relationships in my life. And so anyway, that's something that I'm learning to do like in my 12 steps, you know? But anyway, let's get into some calls, man. But I just want to say thank you to the young man that shared what he was thinking the other night on stage, and you know, and then another couple came up there and they got engaged, man. And, oh man, she was so happy. You know, I saw this woman, she teared up and she was crying, and you know, the guy he was so excited. And man, it's cool. You know, I'm blessed, man. I am blessed to I'm blessed to be able to feel. I'm happy to be able to even feel things. I'm like, you know, what's beautiful for me right now is I get to still have a feeling about my father. You know, and it's so funny. As soon as I started making this list the other day and thinking about this stuff, immediately a lot more memories of my father came into me and in my brain in a more comfortable space. You know, a lot more things came into me where in the memories I was more loving of him now, even immediately, than I was like, you know, the meetings were softer. They had the memories were softer. They had more of a curve to them. It just wasn't such a just a little bit of less 90-degree angles around my heart. Yeah, man. It just got me thinking about the parental stuff and family stuff, and just man, and just like, you know, just judgment, and how my judgment keeps me away from others. I can feel it sometimes, even still today. You know I'm not doing good when I start getting real judgmental, because judgment keeps me away from you. It keeps me away from someone. Oh, look at them. Look at that. Oh, look, they're like that. Oh, they have that. Oh. Now, sometimes it works to inspire me. You know, I judge the rich. I judge the greedy. You know, and sometimes it works to inspire me. And I felt like those things were necessary. But I'm at a point in my life now where I'm able to look and see, okay, is this still serving me well? Or is this just a thing that's keeping me away from people? You know, and then it goes down to, well, why are you so afraid to have somebody care about you? Why are you so afraid to care about someone? Because the thing is, there's this trick. That's the devil out there making you believe that or feel that. That's Satan, baby. That's Lucifer, bruh. That's Lucifer, that darkness sniffer. And they think the whole life you think, oh, I'll just keep judging and keeping people at a distance. But guess what? There's this thing in the distance making you think, oh, that you win somehow, that I win somehow by doing that. I'm not saying you, I'm saying me. But then I get to the end of my life and I'll realize, you know what? I didn't win anything by doing that. That was a trick. And the only thing I won was being alone, or being less connected to others, you know? And not only did I miss out, could I miss out on caring about people, but I missed out on feeling probably a lot of the love that people had for me. Because there's something right there wrapped up, they're next door neighbors, they're cheek to cheek, they're conjoined twins. When I can't love someone, when I judge and I keep someone away from me, you know, I keep me away from them. I keep me away from them. And also, what the fuck? I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Let's get into some questions, man. But I don't know, man. You know. Yeah, and I'm not being hard on myself because, I'm not saying woe is me, this or that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I know that there's, if I'm resentment about something, if I'm angry about something, I need to go look at why I'm angry about it. And if I can eventually find a way that I had some say in it, then at least it's in my control. So instead of being angry at my dad because he was so old and I didn't get to a proper father-son relationship, instead I can take a little bitty piece and say, oh, well, you know what? When I was like 15, 16, I could have probably been a better son at some points. Then it puts a little bit of it on me. Now I can have ownership of it. And now I can go apologize, at my father's grave if I want to and let him know. And not that I'm like, because then it just gives me ownership. Now I'm in control of our relationship again. And now I can rebuild memories. And now I don't have that. Now there's no anger between us anymore. Now it's an opportunity for my brain and heart to be like, oh man, good. That right angle ain't there. That right turn, that stoplight, those 7 stop signs you got built up at this intersection of your emotions, it's not there anymore. And it's just a beautiful curve, man. And you can feel the love. You can feel the love, man.
If someone else spoke to me the way that I speak to myself, I'd have to kill that son of a bitch because, I couldn't tolerate that. I don't know why we're just so mean to ourselves, man. I don't know why I get so addicted to things. I'm even addicted to damn nasal spray. That's about the hardest thing I've had to kick, to be honest with you.
Man, I appreciate your honesty here. Yeah, look, I had a non-addictive nasal spray that I had for a while that, sometimes I'd pull up, if I was going to a bar or something, I'd do a hit in each nose before I go in. It didn't even do anything to me. It gave me a little bit of a flashback of probably doing a drug or something, and just kind of heighten my senses in a weird way. But yeah, man, I'm sorry that you are so mean to yourself. And I don't mean that as a reflection of who you are, because I know, like me, you don't want to be. You don't want to be. But if you're like us, you have some of this that we have, this ism, this alcoholism, this uncomfort. It's really an uncomfort that just lives in us. Yeah, you probably can be real hard on yourself. I think I was always extremely hard on people. That's the number one note people have given me. Man, you're so hard on yourself. And I think I used to think that if I wasn't hard on myself, then nobody was, let me think about this. If I wasn't hard on myself, because when I was young, nobody was anything on me, And so I thought maybe if I was hard on myself, or maybe if I was perfect. I used to think, I realized this the other day. I used to think that, I expected myself to be perfect. So then I would never was, because it's impossible. So then, therefore, I'm so hard on myself, because I thought that I wasn't cared for as a child. And I'm not trying to self-pity. I'm just looking at what was a part of my life that I wasn't cared for as a child. So therefore, I took it on myself. Oh, if I was better, if I was perfect, then I would be loved. I'm not perfect enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough for my mother to see me. I'm not good enough for my father to stay alive. I had this epiphany not long ago that I thought that if I was better, if I was perfect, if I did everything right as a kid, I thought this. I didn't know until just recently that I thought it, but it came up. That if I did everything right, that my father would stay alive. That's what I thought for some reason as a kid. Nobody explained to me what was going on or how things worked, or that dad was getting, I just knew my dad was older and that he was not going to be alive for a long time. And as a child, I thought maybe if I'm perfect, that my life would be different, and more specifically that my dad would stay alive. I thought that. I don't know how I came up with that or what made me think that as a kid. But at least then it gave me some control over what was going to happen. Because now it's something, it's up to me, even though it's not realistic, it's impossible for that to come to fruition, but it's up to me then. So that's why I think I was so hard on myself a lot of times, I think, because then at least it puts it on me, which was the only thing that I felt I could try and rely on anyway, because I didn't feel comfortable in the world. And that's not I'm not trying to downer anybody, but I thought about that. Let's hear more, brother. Thanks for the call.
Yeah, that's enough bitching for me, man. I just wanted to tell you thanks and that you want to learn, man. There's a ton of days where your podcast was the only time I smiled that day, so keep doing the Lord's work, man. Take care of yourself. Gang.
Thanks, bro. You too, man. I'm proud of you, dude. It's hard. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you because I know how hard it is to take care of ourselves. I know how hard it is to take care of ourselves. I know that for me, I never wanted to take care of myself, because if I took care of myself, then I was doing somebody else's job. Instead, I just always wanted to show you how much I was hurting, And so starting to take care of myself was doing the opposite of that. And it was the opposite of the whole thing that I like, oh, you're going to see, when you look at me, you're going to see how much I hurt, and starting to take care of myself is a total opposite of that. So I hear that in you today, and I'm thankful for that, man. I really am. And I'm grateful that I have moments like this. These are moments that mean something to me, two guys trying to be honest. And not even being gay and just being honest. Because these are moments I never had as a child. There was never any peace in my house. There was never a chance for anybody even to listen or to be heard. There was never even any piece of space to think or to feel. There was no space for that. And so it's moments like this, where I can have an honest conversation with somebody. I'd have given anything to have these as a child, and children need these sort of things. So anyway, bro, yeah, enough of that shit for me too, bro. But praise, man. I'm happy for you. I was talking to one of the young men we were working with, and he reminded me of so many things. It was a young man. He's struggling with, his father passed away when he was young, and it really, I think, and he's, he lives with his mother still, and he hasn't really kind of grown up. He's about 30 now. And it just, and my father passed away when I was young, and so I could relate, I could understand some of that. It reminded me of some of that. And actually, it taught me about some of the, moments that I'd never really, I was so oblivious to the world, I think, when my dad passed away, that I wasn't able to really get a view of how I reacted to it or what it meant to me or what was going on or how I behaved or anything. But by talking with this young guy and seeing what was going on with him, I was able to kind of get a vision of what that can be like sometimes for a young man. And And then I was like, oh, wow. Well, I started thinking, and this may not be right, but I started thinking and feeling like, oh, one of the reasons that, possibly one of the reasons that this young man doesn't want to move out and doesn't want to grow up is because his dad is gone. It's kind of like we don't want to, if the person who we care about the most, or one of the people that we want to see us grow up the most isn't there, then sometimes we just will stop evolving. We won't grow up. And it's just that way, it's like saying fuck you to the world. It's like saying, oh, you're going to take my dad away. You're not going to let the person that I care about the most be here to see me grow up. Then fuck you, I'm not growing up. And it's like the only thing we can do, because there's no other way to get back at time or to get back at the world than by our own actions, really. And so we just stay where we are. We say, okay, time, you're going to keep going on, but I'm going to stay right where I am. You're not going to get me. I'm not flowing in your river. I'm not flowing forward. I'm not evolving. Because the person I want to be here the most, you took them away. Well, I'm going to stay right where I fucking am. I'll show you, this kind of invisible, I'll show you to the world that took away your parent or took away somebody you cared about. But at a certain point, you just start to hurt yourself, At a certain point, it's like, you're 30 or you're getting older and you're still at home. And now it's like, it's cumbersome on the young fella's mother, and she's getting older and he needs to be able to contribute. And I'm not airing his dirty laundry out there. Like, I'm not ashamed of the guy, this is just his life. This is what's going on. We're all just, people that are trying. But yeah, at a certain point, he owes it to the adult him to try and get past it. And I understand the young, him wanting to stay young forever and stay right where he is, and nobody else is, if he stays living with his mom, then there's not really space for another man to come into the home. And it kind of like, it's him just at a core level, just holding on to everything so much where, to what it was like when he was a kid. But he owes it to an adult him sometimes to move on. Because then the adult him has a chance to live in the world and have an experience. But it made me think about a lot of things. It made me think about, how it made me think about what are ways that when things happen to me that I would then try and that I would then try and control the world so that I could show the world, who's boss. Oh, okay, world, you're gonna, I don't know, I can't think of some kind of, but I could heavily relate to what this boy went, in a way, like I could see wow. Sometimes if something happens to us, then we hold a grudge against the world, and we can carry it out in ways that over time aren't really helpful to us anymore. But it's so wild to see, you see this boy trapped in this man's body, and the man's body, the adult, wants to move on, but there's this boy just holding on to this, this grudge, honestly, against the world. And it's a fair grudge. The world took his father, but it's an unfair grudge in the sense that he's not being fair to himself now, to the adult him that wants to really feel free to challenge the world and to take on the world. I just wish I just felt more comfortable in my own skin a lot of times, because I feel like I would be able to be more effective as a person if I could just kind of not toil in some of my own, small self-worth issues, or lack of confidence at times. I wish I could trust my instincts, and I wish my instincts were better calibrated so that I knew when if I was doing okay and good stuff, then my insides told me you're being okay. You don't have to worry.
How good are you at that? It's not very good.
Yeah, I think Yeah, like you said, sometimes I just I don't know, and especially like if people get bullied and then they don't have like a brother or they don't have a friend.
Jesus Christ! I think I know what's gonna happen. Bad things.
Yeah, I don't even know anymore now.
Because you're so stupid. When you're 15, 16, 17, you guys are just doing stupid shit, you know?
Okay, so is that something that you think, or that's something that you think that could be really true?
Dirty little tramp.
Well, thanks for saying that, man. Appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's...
God damn it. Look at that. And he's crying and crying. You feel so bad. You feel so bad. And 15 years later, someone's sucking his dick. Some dirty little girl down the block.
Like that can make, then that person gets stuck inside themselves just feeling like, like they're not going to be okay.
What was wrong with that? You should be very wary about entering to anything where 60% of what you're experiencing is negative. Anything. Let me tell you something you got to see that's good, that's out right now on Amazon Prime. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
That's good. That's neat that you're so in tune with all of that stuff, man, and that you're into those worlds. That sounds like a lot of fun,
I said, don't talk to me like that, because I could fuck you up.
Yeah, what other animal's going to do that?
What? How the fuck? We're at war?
I'm not sure.
I thought we didn't do that anymore.
Yeah, I'm not going to do anything drastic like that.
Yeah, man. They do remake a lot of fucking television shows, though. I mean, it is fucking ridiculous.
I think, when I really think about it...
They remake so many shows. It makes it like, is it that hard to come up with a new line of thought?
Oh, I bet. I'm sure there's some chick out there that's fucked an alien.
Get the fuck out of here. Is it legal? It's legal. Okay. How's it different than corn?
Yeah, you make people so aware that they can't... I don't know.
How's it different than a fucking a pear tree? It's not. It's a legal life form. The deal is, it's legal or it's not legal. You can't just decide it's legal, but you're the only one who gets to make money. Fuck you.
Fuck, man.
Is forgiveness in us? Because I try to forgive so much, but then oftentimes I dwell on, why they wronged me. And this goes for my brother, my dad, my mom.
Yeah, it's a good call, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for calling. And it's funny, this is kind of right where I am. During the holiday, during Easter, I got to see my mother and see my brother, and it's tough because it's like, yeah, how long do I hold a grudge, And then, because at a certain point, your parents, they're just getting older and you're missing out on whatever there is there. And yeah, I think I believe, and it's one of the reasons why I'm trying to recommit myself to my program, is because I believe that forgiveness is the only answer. I believe that letting go of whatever that hurt is. Sometimes I felt so hurt as a kid. I hold on to that hurt because sometimes it's the only relationship I had with my mother was that I was angry at her. And it's all I had. It's the only thing that I had. So it was like so hard to let it go. It's been hard to let it go. Because the only thing that I had was my anger or my uncomfort or my pain. It was so hard to let it go. It's like a blanket, it's like I know this isn't good for me, but somehow it keeps me warm a little. The only thing I had, when I was young, and I'm not talking about self-pity here or anything like that. I'm trying to really examine this, like why we hold on to those things. Cause yeah, for a long time, all I had was just my anger. And I was wronged, it's somebody's, all I had was that. And when you have that from a young age with a parent, it's like, it's not even you holding on to it as a conscious adult. It's this inner child that's got this claws on him, He got them grips, them mitts, baby. And so it's hard to let go of some of that. But I just believe that the only way to do it, the only way to really get free is to have some forgiveness, And people do the best they can. I saw my mother this weekend, and all any of us are is just kids that are just getting older, and just trying our best in the world. And sometimes it takes time. You can't really force it, but I think we can get into practices that help us get closer to forgiveness. And that's where I want to be. Because at a certain point, I'm tired of the grudges. Even if I'm not the one making them, even if they're from I've got to talk to myself or have a relationship enough with my heart that's like, hey, trust me enough to walk us through this. And with my higher power. To say, hey, God, help me walk through this. Help me. I have felt unloved, or I have felt wronged, or I have felt this. Help me try again to give this person a chance to love me, because if not, I miss out twice. I miss out as a child when I wasn't able to make a choice. When I had, it was all survival instincts that I had to operate from. But I miss out as an adult when I am able to make a choice. And as hard as it is, I don't want to miss out on getting to love my mother twice. And I don't know if that makes a ton of sense or not. And fuck, I don't even know if I care if it does. It's been, for me, it's been a long journey with this kind of stuff and trying to navigate it. And that's okay. That's okay. So, but I wish you well there, brother. And just know that there's other people out there that are on this journey with you in some ways. It could be a mother, it could be a father, it could be a sibling. And it could be ourselves. Sometimes a lot of it for me is about forgiving myself. When you are, as children, you think it's your fault. You take you take so much responsibility for yourself that if something isn't right, then of course it's on me. It's on me. But if stuff's on you for so long, it's on me, it's on me, it's on me. You can handle that for a while, but I think at a certain point, you're right, it's all on you. And it's just you. And it gets kind of lonesome, you know? And I'm not saying that in a self-pity way. I'm just saying that in like, you know, I want my life to be filled with other people. And so that's, hopefully, that is a direction that I can head in, you know, with the help of others and with the help of a higher power. You know, I've been there before, and I think I can be there again.